Hey everyone, this is Chris and Sandy Benton with the Chris and Sandy Show, where we get up close and personal with some amazing guests throughout the entertainment industry. And today, like I say on every episode, we've got a great one for you. Who do we have?
We have Kenny Foster with us today. He is a singer-songwriter, and we're going to talk about his latest release, Somewhere in Middle America. And the title track off his upcoming album, due out early summer of 22, explores Kenny's childhood growing up in Joplin, Missouri, and the lessons learned by a simple upbringing.
And we're excited to have him on the show. So
Yes.
welcome to the show.
Hey, y'all, thank you so much for having me. It's awesome.
It's our pleasure. You know,
Yes.
we always like to start the show out the same way because, as you know, a lot of people, it's been rough last 20 months or so.
Definitely has.
So how, and I like to get different people's perspective because that way people can learn. But how has COVID affected you and what have you done to maneuver through this time?
That's a great question, man. Thanks again for having me, y'all. 2019 was my biggest year ever. Touring artist. I had a record out for a couple years that we were touring off of. We did 125,000 miles in 13 different countries. We were out for 9 months at a time. And so 2020 was not that. It was a huge halt for me, which is really difficult. At first, it felt good. That we finally got some rest. I was going to be a little out of cycle. It helped me get some space.
Right.
But at the same time, and it was collective. Remember at the beginning when we were all just like, okay, we don't know what this is, but let's all do this. Now we're taking pictures of the bread we baked and like all this kind of stuff.
And pictures of toilet paper.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I'm trying to find it.
Nice to remember. But then eventually like it started peeling off and different areas had different regulations. And then you had people like going to Greece and you're like sitting in your PJs wondering if you're missing out on something. It was this strange, like, I have FOMO anyway. I don't know if you guys have this fear of missing out, and which is terrible as an artist, especially. But it was nice to have a period of my life that I did not have any of that. Like there was only so much any of us could be doing, and so I got to put all that time and energy into creation and reconnection with old friends. Yeah. It was very sweet at the beginning. And then once we realized we weren't sure how we were going to come out of it, it became way less fun. I imagine a lot of people felt this way. My wife and I, we live small and we save well. So we were fine, like everything was good. Yeah. No real stress, but we were ready for whatever normalcy was. And so it was great.
I understand that.
It was so crazy to go from, pedal to the metal, only sleeping in your own bed for like 90 nights to like nothing at all, being home all the time. We got to zhuzh up our place a little bit. I got way better at cooking. But I'm ready for a non-compromised version of normal. I am ready for that. One where everyone can be free to hug and hold and be around and indoors, outdoors, whatever our hearts desire. I'm really looking forward to that.
The bad part is that, again, I think some people got so used to this that they don't want to go back to normal. And it's like, I've seen people on Facebook talk about, I'm never going back. To that. And but like for us, we launched this show January of 2020.
Oh, right on.
A couple months before COVID. And I remember our original plan was maybe 100 interviews first year. We thought if we could do that, be a great foundation. And then COVID happens. And as I'm watching everything get shut down, I told Sandy, I was like, as a brand new show, it's hard to get guests on because you're still new. Yeah. I was like, but now may be the time we can get almost anybody.
Well,
and
sure.
So we just reached out to everybody, and we did over 300 interviews that year, and we're over 500 now because of it.
Amazing. Yeah, no, everybody's access. And I think I appreciate the way that the barriers kind of got dropped during this time. Everyone knew what everyone else was up to. And so while that could feel hampering in some ways, I think it was really good because you end up getting to know the normal parts of us. I think the entertainment industry is funny because we hold aloft these folks to like some higher standard or some caliber. But the people that I want to aspire to, I also want to like them as people. And I
Yeah.
think that
Yeah,
that's something
right.
that maybe during this time people are starting to, they want the whole package, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Not
Yeah.
just somebody who's
Sure.
fantastical and has a huge team behind them, but maybe somebody who's also relatable, who has something else to say besides what it is that they do, you know?
And social media has helped with
Yes.
that, even though people, of course, we know fake a lot of stuff on social media. But if you're on social media a lot, people will eventually see through if you're faking it. So,
Yeah, they'll
so
know
I
if you're
think social
authentic
media
or
has
not.
helped people see, you know what, you are just like me. And I
Yeah.
think that's a huge thing.
All any of us are. I mean, that's, you know, and if we wanted to segue, I grew up in middle America where we, you know, held aloft, you know, the coasts were this magical place with all these fantastic people, and
Yes.
the way that we loved our music and our films and you know, the posters we have on our walls and all of that, you know, that sweet time. Um, no one ever really considered that we could be one of the people on the posters or be one of the people on the camera. And I don't know what it was, if there was just this strange mental or cultural barrier that like kept us from thinking that way. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
at some point I thought, no, I at least want to try. I mean, somebody's got to be doing this,
Exactly.
you know, like it's got to be somebody, you know, kind of, why not me?
So, you know, a lot of people would ask, when did you know you wanted to do music? I always like to go deeper than that. When did it click for you that this could be a career?
I'll be honest, I had a band in college. I didn't start thinking I could create music. Well, besides annoying my choir teachers, you know, they would, you know, we'd be thumbing through and I'd be like, you know, it'd be a lot cooler if the baritones did this and the bass.
Oh, wow.
And she was like, you can't do that, Kenny. And I was like, why not? And so there was something about that. I took some piano lessons, but really just to learn Bryan Adams' Everything I Do It For You, to sing it at summer camp with girls. That was really the main motivator there. And then I was in college and I went to a concert of somebody that I held aloft. That was just really a fantastic writer. It seemed like they were peering into my life and saying my words to me.
Yeah.
This guy named Dashboard Confessional. His name's Chris Carrabba, but he goes by the name Dashboard Confessional. And he had a band with him. And I drove up from my college town to Lawrence, Kansas, at the Bottleneck, and I watched him play, and everyone in the crowd was singing his lines back to him. And there was this sort of seminal moment for me, which was, look, this is my story. So how is it every single one of these kids' stories too? And how did he do that, you know, to and for us? And like that sort of began my like search to like, I need to be good enough that I affect people the way that this guy affected me. And it went through a lot.
And you know, and I love that. And you know, as you know, a lot of people, they see the glory behind what you do, the glory behind a Blake Shelton, of a Miranda, of a Carey. They don't see the grind, the sacrifice, the tears, the struggles it takes to get to not just their level, but even a career level within music. And I always want to talk about that side of it, because people think the glamorous side is where it's at, but we both know that the glamorous side is such a small part to music.
Sure. Well,
and reading your story, I know you know.
Oh, yes.
So let's talk a little bit about this. Tell us about some of the sacrifices and struggles you've had to go through to keep this thing dream alive.
Well, it's funny because the money really got sucked out of music right around the time that I decided to get into it, because my timing is impeccable. And it's just, it took a lot, you know. I mean, I left my hometown, which I loved. You know, I was 13 generations in Southwest Missouri. You know, we'd been there since the Civil War, and nobody had really left. And I had a great support system, and I had people that knew my family, and even when I went to school just an hour away, like reputation kind of follows you, and you build this thing, and it feels so real to you. Until you leave it and realize that it was only real in that moment in time, in that particular region. And this sense of just, you know, global awareness, national awareness for who you are and what it is that you do is a struggle, you know, a generational struggle for us, you know, up to a point. And those were the shoulders that I was standing on that didn't even realize, you know.
Yeah.
And so I moved to Nashville, and I gave up, a full ride at a college that I was at because
Oh, wow.
it was
You were all in.
yeah, there was no reason not to be, especially the way that my life had sort of played and or panned out up to that point. I had no reason to think it would be any different when I moved. Oops. It was so much more difficult than I'd ever. The biggest thing I would say is when you leave a place that is for you,
Mm-hmm.
to go to a place that doesn't know or care about you, the thing that you lose the most is that sense of belonging while
Yeah.
you are
Oh,
striving,
yeah.
while you are trying,
That makes
not
sense.
realizing that all of those, guidance counselors or teachers or whatever that are leading you, along the way, those all go away. And in fact, if you meet someone that could fill that role for you, they may be trying to do the same thing. I didn't realize that I was now in competition with my heroes. That was something I never considered in my life. I was like, no, you thank them very much so when you climb this ladder, not realizing, no, like every slot is finite. Every opportunity is finite. And so one that you are taking is one that somebody that inspired you to do this isn't having. And you realize, oh my God, like I had no sense of this whatsoever.
And I get that. Like with our show, back when we launched our show, most people that were doing podcasts and shows like this were your average people or trying to do something with their life. Well, now all of a sudden it's become every big artist, every big celebrity is doing their own shows, and it's like we're having to compete to get
against people we look up
to. Like you said.
Like you talked about.
And it's funny because you have to inhabit this space in your heart and mind that continues to pay homage to the people that inspired you to do this, but also is strong enough, proud enough, assured enough to know that you belong, that you have a voice that is different, that is specific to you, that fills a niche, that fills a need that wasn't being met before.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest growth things for me, that because again, Midwest, humble and kind, and that's I'm sure you guys relate. You, especially in country music and the kind of music that I do, like it's so emotional and it's so earnest, and it's not just trying to be those things; it is those things, and so it's really difficult to become like a self-promoting asshole in the midst of trying to be somebody who's like really trying to get to the bottom of this humanity thing, this relationship, this life thing that we're trying to do. That's been a really hard
balance.
Exactly. It's a tightrope, because you can't, it's almost in this particular, in this soundbite world that we live in, it's almost the more bombastic the story, the better. But I don't want to find an earnest artist that speaks to me through some bombastic means. Like, I don't want to be like, dude falls off a building and lives to tell the tale. Also turns out to be a great songwriter. You know what I mean? Like that's
Well, what's funny about that is that it's probably helped us with a little bit with the show is, my wife and I, we met online back in 2002, February of 2002. 2 days later, February 4th, we talked on the phone for the first time. Then February 18th, so 16 days after we met in person, we set a wedding date.
We did.
And then March 4th, we met in person. So we were meeting in person to see who we were going to marry. So we've got that. We kind of got that story that kind of helps us out because, not too many people can have our story and not too many people get interviewed by a married couple.
Oh, no, I love it. I love what y'all are doing. It's really cool. Thanks for.
And speaking of married couples, that's perfect lead in for this. Your wife, I know you say that your wife has helped you keep going because I know that she does that with me. Tell us about that. How has she been that force behind you to where where you were at the point where you're almost ready to give up, but she's like, no, you got to keep going.
Yeah, it's a sweet story. Ours is a love story forged from two small town kids that had the same realizations around the same time. she was working in the industry, actually managing a venue at the time that we met.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Mhm.
And I was a guy that needed venues to book them, but I was so forlorn and so heartbroken when we met that I didn't. It was the first time in my life that I wasn't performing for somebody,
Wow.
and she
Wow.
saw through any performance that I might have put on, which was mostly stripped down, and saw the heart of me and loved that thing. And
Oh, wow.
and I had never experienced that before outside of my family, of course. And almost to the point that you almost didn't trust it. You know,
Wow.
it's like,
Yeah.
this is too kind. Like, what's the angle here? It was pure. And she was also in the industry, and we knew each other. And so we went from these young kids that were wide-eyed and bushy-tailed to, like, you know, grizzled veterans really fast, hopping a lot of jobs. You know, I was interning at Sony Records when we met, so
Oh,
I
wow.
like see how the sausage was made,
Yeah.
which at first just destroyed me because I realized, oh, it has nothing to do with all of these things that I know. It's zero. You know, when the strength of your publicist is more important than the strength of your songwriting, it just like that
Oh,
kind of
wow.
hit me a little bit. But then I had a wife that was like, but we know how it works now. We get this. And so like, we need to find good, earnest people that understand what we're after, that aren't, you know, in it for a quick buck. Like, how do we make a way in this town? And it's not just this town, but the world at large.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how many artists on here talk about this aspect of it, but like, it can be day to day, man. It can be week to week. Like, am I just making this up? Because we all are, you know, like the adults are.
As you go.
Yeah.
As we go. Yep.
Somebody said adulthood is jumping off of a cliff and building an airplane on the way down.
I was about to make that comment that I was about to say. It's like jumping off a cliff and spreading your wings as you go down, hoping it works.
Yeah, and you know, and trying to assemble the pieces of things that are also falling around you, and it just, you know, it's this weird, like, nobody really prepares you for that, and that's the adventure of it, and it's also the difficulty of it, but the amount of growth that happens through that process is really important. And I needed my wife, you know, every step, and continue to, you know.
Exactly. Same here.
Yeah, it's the best thing that we've got, and it almost makes the thing that we strive for seem lesser in light, you know, through the lens of the fact that we got to find our person. Like, what a wonderful, you know, testament that maybe life's okay. Maybe life's pretty good. Regardless of what we're going after. We've got a child on the way, and I know that that's only going to change and get different.
Oh, congratulations on that.
Because we've got a 10-year-old, but you'll hear from him later because we let him come on and ask a few questions.
Oh, I love that.
And we've got again, we're the family show. So see, that's our niche.
I think it's good.
And we also got a almost 3-year-old. In fact, she'll be 3 Sunday, but later in life, when she gets a little older, she'll be plugged in the show too, because we are that family show.
Yes.
I love that, y'all. That's really, really cool.
You know, speaking of struggles, and you know, everything's about memories, about bringing back the past and all that. You know, back in 2020, before COVID happened, and the tornadoes hit Nashville, I imagine that you had some memories that come back there.
Sure, 100%. It's strange because the tornado.
You're like, oh God, not again.
Well, I mean, and it happens every tornado season, you know.
Right.
It's not if, but when, and it's how bad, you know, is the question.
Right. Yes.
I mean, it's a far cry from growing up in the Midwest Tornado Alley and watching them from your porch, you know, just making sure, oh no, that's over on 7th Street.
Yes.
That kind of discussion to actually being hit with something as hard as my hometown was, Joplin. So it changed the face of that city, and you know, the face of my family. We were very lucky. We were very lucky in our neighborhood and in our home. I mean, my parents rode out that F5 tornado in their crawl space of our home, like my childhood home. And that was something that I knew about but wasn't there for. I was still in Nashville, living on just some random Sunday afternoon. And, that changed the course of my hometown and the course of my family. And then similarly in 2020, when the tornadoes came through Nashville, I was in Europe. I was on tour.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
So again, like something's happening back home that I have almost no control over.
Wow.
Wow.
And then went straight into COVID lockdown after that. So even your want and desire to go help and pick up,
you can't.
Yeah, it felt really weird. And
I mean, Nashville was hit hard in 2020 because then you had the Christmas bombing.
Oh, yes, at the end of the year.
I mean, it was like at the end of the year, we were like, because I mean, we're planning on eventually moving to Nashville either end of this year or next spring. But back in 2020, we were watching it and we're like, Nashville just cannot get a break.
And it felt that way. I mean, I think the weight of the city was kind of on all of us. We were finally in national news, but not for the reasons you want to be.
Right.
But you got the one thing that I did notice between all that, from the tornadoes to COVID to the Christmas Day bombing, is you got to see the Nashville spirit.
Sure.
There's something different about Nashville. I mean, I know that every city has their own spirit, but in my opinion, nothing's like that Nashville spirit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm of course very biased. I thought the city of Joplin did a pretty darn good job coming back, and it was really neat to be in and around that while it was happening.
Yep.
Yeah,
the family and the community, and seeing the greater communities come in for volunteerism, which was really cool. Tennessee is the volunteer state, so of course they're going to have it within them. So yeah, no, it's a spirit that has this sort of like resilience in the face of, and I think it's not this defiant like standing on the mountaintop throwing spears at the clouds or anything. To me, it's sort of like, yep, this happened again. There's this sort of like, and then, so, okay, so this, now what? And almost more of a focus on the now what than the what happened. We're all going to write our songs about it, because that's what we do. But
speaking of writing songs, you can tell us a little bit about your hometown songs and stuff.
Yes.
Well, it's funny because I would say that like my career in country music, so to speak, kind of started there inadvertently through the song that I wrote. I wrote the song for my family, knowing that we needed something, and then I went down two or 3 days after the tornado, and we'd kind of put a blast out on social media and got a few publications to pick up. And so we took down like truckloads of supplies for folks back home, anywhere from like toothbrushes to extra clothes to backpacks and luggage and that sort of thing. Softly used and brand new. And we went down there, and at a sort of like get together of some mutual friends whose house wasn't affected so they could house it. They made some pork chops, and we sat around and tried to figure out what just happened. And I pulled out my guitar, I had it with me, and I played this song, and they loved it and wanted to share it. And it was deeply meaningful to everybody there. And like, again, I think coming from just like, not like a prodigal son, but, just somebody who knew about it and had been from there, and it meant so much too. I think it resonated in a way that I wasn't ready for. And so we came back home and recorded that. And then we had a dear friend, Michelle Steffes, who's a director now in LA, that ended up coming to Joplin in the next couple months. And we shot a music video for this song just because how do we amplify this message and help the healing process? Such a powerful, I thought it was just for us, but it turns out it was for everybody, similar to a Dashboard Confessional situation, or like a river or an unanswered prayer.
I mean, that's what's great about music is because it means something to you, doesn't mean it's gonna mean the same thing to everybody else, and everybody else can find their own meaning, and that's what a powerful song is.
Sure, and I think a really strong song pulls people to the same emotional state, even if even if the specifics of the emotion are different for them.
Sure.
And that's a craft, and that's something that country music does better than any other genre. It just there are feelings in production, in pop. You can get an emotional. I mean, this is a funny reference, but like every time I listen to Coldplay, I know it's Coldplay, and I go to the same sort of like mental place.
Yeah.
But country music has the power to do that, where you lean in and you wonder what's about to be said, because something's about to be said. And there's the promise of that I hold on to, at least through a verse chorus. And you've either got me at the end of that chorus because I see what you just did, or I'm out. Like what is it that you've said? What are we trying to do here? And is it edifying, or is it tearing down, or like what, is it
because in country music they go both ways.
Oh yeah.
I remember, and they make you think. Sometimes they make you think they're going. Like I remember when Gabby Barrett's "I Hope" song first come out, we were listening to it, and I'm like, my God, this is different. This is actually uplifting your ex. And then all of a sudden the chorus came, and I'm like, okay, there's
the swing, right? Yeah. Well, and you praise the turn like that. I mean, that's great craft, But and I guess for me, I don't know if it's just about getting older or just being inundated with music all the time. If I'm letting something into my eardrums and into my brain, like I want it to be good, and I want it to not just be good, but
I want it to move you.
Yeah, feel a need. Yeah. I just like. I like to listen with intent. I'm kind of an intense, person when it comes to these things, especially music, the creation and the listening and the participation in it. Music is a group activity. Music, and that's what's been so hard about this last 20 months, as you said. If I don't get to see the faces of the people that I'm affecting, like if you told me 20 years ago, hey man, someday you're going to grow up and you're going to sing into your phone for a living, I would have picked anything else. You know what I mean? Anything.
Yes.
So I'm dying to get back. I'm dying to get back to see what songs do in real time.
Exactly. You can't measure it online. I know that they try, but you really can. You can only measure it when that crowd is there and you're singing
the faces,
and then you see the faces on how they react to certain parts of songs,
and you feel the air in the room change when a lyric hits, and audible gasps in a quiet room, or like for me, even seeing somebody like a confused look on their face. I didn't do something wrong. Like
they're thinking, okay, I'm trying to process this.
It pumps me full of adrenaline that can only be figured out in real time. And it's this rush that, like, to bring back another analogy, a tightrope. Like I'm on it, and we're either gonna like make it to the edge of this platform, or we're going to fall into the net. And like, it's anybody's guess, including the people that are going to determine whether or not this went well. We're all just like, and I long for that. I can't wait to get to be in a space where we're in a festival format or a club format, and everyone just gets to be themselves again.
I love that. Now, as you know, a lot of people, they see you, but they don't see the team behind you. In our opinion, teams never get the love they deserve. On our show, they get some love. So you're going to take a few moments and tell us about the team that helps you be who you are.
That's great, man. Good. Thanks for stripping all this stuff away. It's really neat. It's refreshing. First and foremost, my wife, I call her my wifeager.
I love that.
So we, there are a ton of management teams in the world, and when they come alongside us and have something to offer, it'll be really awesome. And I can't wait for a partnership, and also to give her a break for a little while. He's so damn capable, and until something better comes along, we're just going to keep doing what we do. I mean, if U2 has gone their entire career unmanaged, I think maybe we can do it. Okay, so it's my wife, obviously. I have a producer that I've worked on my last 2 records with, Mitch Dane. He produced some records I really loved growing up. Jars of Clay, if you remember this band.
Oh yeah, the Christian.
I grew up listening to them, and now to like be friends with those guys and
Oh,
have
wow.
them playing on my records and having him produce the record is really special for me. And he's a little left of center in the regular Nashville studio grind.
Yeah.
And I'm a little left of center, and so I feel like
So it works.
it works absolutely 100%. I have a ton of co-writers that inspire me in new ways every day, whether it's for my music or someone else's music, and without them, and they're numerous. I couldn't do it without co-writers. We finally got around to. I have a photographer and a videographer that I took with me when we were making this. Before we made this new record, I took back home with me. One of them is a Missouri boy. One's a Tennessee boy, one's an Arkansas boy, and so we went together, and I showed them the road that I take back and forth between home and Nashville.
You're just pulling all the SEC around you.
Yeah, basically. Well, we joined up late, if we're being honest. And I know full well. But showing them that space, and these are the type of people that I've gotten to put around me. They're artists themselves, you know. Videography is an art. Photography, especially the way that Rory does it, is an art. To Rory White and Kenny Jackson, and I just trusted them implicitly to come together and put this record together as we went. I have a publicity team now, which is really special. I've got one in the UK.
Oh wow!
Which is where I started doing my touring, Lime Tree Music, and they were fantastic. They really kind of plucked me out of obscurity here in the States, gave me a platform that I'm really grateful to them for. And now True Public Relations here in this.
We love them.
Oh
yeah.
Yes,
oh my gosh, man, yeah. Taylor's fantastic, Marcel, and this is the first time we've worked with the domestic publicity group. We've never done anything like that, and so I'm interested to see what happens this next year to let people back home know what I've been up to in Europe and beyond. And that's, I'm trying to think if there's anybody. Oh, and then today I got to announce. You guys might not even know yet because it just happened. So I just signed like a global representation deal with UTA. So that agency has been fantastic. I've been working in pieces with them, both in Nashville office and the London office for the past 2 years, I'd say. We got to make it official today. So
wow.
So I'm really looking forward to thank you so much. The opportunities to open for some of my heroes are on the horizon, and opportunities to play some of those festivals that have eluded me up to this point. You know, maybe we have enough to push it over the edge, you know, to convince them that no, he's worthwhile. So I wish we didn't need arbiters, but I'm so glad to have such good ones.
Yeah, we totally understand about trying to be big enough where you could be pushed over, because again, we go after everybody when it comes to our show, and we go bigger and bigger and bigger, and we get a lot of no's. But every now and then, people will look at our list of guests we've had on and be like, "Oh yeah, we'll do it," and we're like, "Sure, there's another one."
The analogy we always use is, you're just putting feathers in your cap, and eventually you're going to be a peacock, and you can strut that stuff. So,
I love that. And speaking of teams, we have a third co-host, like I said earlier, our 10-year-old.
Oh yes.
So Sandy's going to go get him.
I'll get him.
Do it.
So while we're waiting for her to get him, what's next for you?
Well, next for me is my wife and I are having our first child. It's happening next week.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's crazy. His due date is 2 weeks from now, but he's a big old boy, so I think he's coming early. And so then we will enjoy him. We've set up our life in such a way where she's got some maternity leave. She's in television and live event production now. And so we just took no gigs for a month or two, and we're just going to enjoy him as much as we can. And then we will come back. There he is. What's up, bud?
Hi, Kenny is going to get hot. So what's your favorite food?
What is my favorite food? That's a great question, man. I'm ooh. Can I give you two? Okay.
Yeah.
I will eat pizza all day long,
Ooh.
and I know people are gonna balk at some of this. Pepperoni and pineapple is my jam, and I love some pineapple. I love some Cajun spice on there, some chipotle. I love that. And I also will eat Jelly Bellies until I am sick to my stomach. Any flavor, well, except for black licorice. But almost anything. Jelly Bellies, I'll just chomp, 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 chomp. What about you, bud? What's your favorite?
My favorite's pizza.
Yeah, there we go. We're on the level. I love it.
And he does love the pepperoni and
And
pineapple and stuff because so many people asked, "Do you like pineapple on?" And he was like, "I never tried it, never tried it." And finally, one day,
Yeah.
we was like, "Okay, let's give it to him," and he loved it.
Dude, sweet and spicy. I mean, you can't beat it. It's all of the mouth. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Okay, so what's your favorite TV show and movie?
Ooh, okay. So my favorite TV show, it's a toss up between Westworld, which I really got into, episodic, on HBO, and Ted Lasso is pretty freaking good, man. I know it's not just a buzzword, like it's such a good show. He's kind of the hero that we need right now. So I appreciate that. And movie, I'm going to give you two again. I just can't pick one. Fight Club. I grew up watching David Fincher films, and the way he captured that book, it really got me out of Chuck Palahniuk as well as an author. Fight Club, loved it. And a little bit younger, a little bit cooler, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Got to be the Last Crusade. Sean Connery does phenomenally. There's so much action. It's so many quippy jokes. It's the perfect film. It's got everything. So I'm gonna have to go with that.
Because what's yours?
My favorite TV show is SpongeBob, and my favorite movie is The Minions.
Oh, right on. That's super fun.
Yeah, it's funny, we've been, because we bring on not just artists but actors and actresses too on the show. He has a lot of this Nickelodeon and Disney shows that we've been able to bring on people he's fans of onto
That's
the show.
super awesome, man. I love that. That's super cool.
Bye, thanks.
Hey, Steve, thank you for your questions.
Yeah, again, like I said, they might not remember us, but they'll remember him.
Absolutely, man.
He's our secret sauce.
Yeah. Hey, we all need it. We all need it.
Not great, granted, most people do remember us, but if they don't, they will for sure remember him.
They'll remember Chris.
At least remember the family show, because nobody.
Yeah.
How many people can say they've been interviewed by a 10-year-old?
Yeah.
I
And
love
he's been doing it since he was 8.
Yeah, so he was 8 when he first started.
Yeah.
Super cool. Well, I love it. And getting some industry experience there too.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, if you could co-write with any artist, dead or alive, who would it be? And you can say a couple if you want.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, thank you, because I can't pick just one.
Yes.
I mean, I would be really interested to just be in the room and figure out what Merle Haggard's process was.
Ooh, that's a great one. Yeah.
Just to be in and around it, at that particular time. If I got to go backwards, I don't need him telling here. I'm afraid he'd be real upset with what we've done to it, but going back there would be really cool. John Mayer. John Mayer is I don't know, for my generation specifically, like he just has a prowess. Part of me doesn't want to see behind that curtain. I just want to appreciate him from afar.
Yeah.
Because you might see what you don't like, and then you just destroy it. Or the other way.
Not even that, or I find out that I've been doing it wrong this whole time. I don't.
Oh yeah.
So
and he's mastered it.
Yeah, because he's the master of that.
He is. He turn a phrase, man. Nobody does it like he does. Except maybe with, and again, Chris Carrabba from Dashboard Confessional. He's a master of taking a moment and hitting the specifics in it that they aren't your specifics, but you imagine it. You imagine that it is. And I think that's just a skill set. So I think
Yeah.
if we're talking pure writers, I think those are the three, because both, I know that all three of them were what they were. There were not a lot of co-writing involved, just the practice. So.
Now, this question would probably have 1,000 answers. Just think of first one or two things that come to mind. You know, I usually ask for one, but you can do a couple because I know that you're going to go there anyway. But what's a song or two that you've heard that you wish you wrote?
Okay. The first one, hands down, The Good Stuff. Kenny Chesney put out.
Oh, I love that one. Yeah.
That dude picks good songs, and there is not a wasted line in that entire song.
Yeah.
It's so good. John Mayer's 3x5 is just it's stupid to talk about, to talk to somebody that like you're sending them photos because you want them to be there, and then like deciding that you're not going to do that anymore, that they have to be with you. And I don't know, that's what a cool, I love things that come at you sideways like that. Yeah, just those really and The River. I remember where I was when I was at a Boy Scout camp when I heard for the first time. Dream is like a river, ever changing as it flows, and the dreamer's just a vessel that must follow where it goes.
Yeah.
Trying to learn from what's behind you, never knowing what's in store. It makes each day a constant battle just to stay between the shores. And it was like I was, I was 11 years old, and like suddenly realizing that like, even adults don't have it together. I think it was one of my first like realizations that maybe there's more to all of this.
Speaking of when you were 11, I've got a good story of little Chris. He was 9. It was our very first time visiting Nashville last year. We went 4 times last year. That's how much we ended up loving it. But very first time back last April.
First time any of us have been.
We'd never been there.
None of us had ever been
so
there.
It's that evening. We're walking down almost to Broadway, and we get in front of Honky Tonk Central. And one of the drummers in there seen little Chris.
So I'm listening to the music intently because he loves music.
Sure.
And hands the drumstick to someone, says, "Go get that little boy out there." So he gives him the drumstick. So we thought that was like the coolest thing. But then we had no idea what was about to happen. So we walk across the street, and we're now listening to the person that was on stage for Dierks Bentley Road. And again, he's into it. He's like shaking the drumstick because now he's got a drumstick. And the woman singer, she sees him. She jumps down and asks would he like to play a song on the drums with them, since he had a drumstick with them. And it happened to be the Summer of '69 song. So she pulls him through the window,
literally
up on the stage. He's never had touched drums before.
And he gets a packed house, like
they're rooting for him.
So
here it is. He gets on stage, never knowing what he's doing, and he just fell in love with it.
Oh, that's so cool, man. I love that the hospitality in Nashville is doing that. That those dream makers and everybody who's in those positions is aware. I love stories like that. That's really special.
Yes, that made us realize what a great place Nashville is. Where
dreams well, everybody hears from somewhere else, but I think we were all drawn by the same passion, the same want, the same desires, and that can be a tie that binds.
Exactly. Absolutely. So what are some sources of inspiration for you?
That's a great question. I don't read a lot, but when I do, there's this is gonna be so weird. I'm such a weird dude. There's a Japanese author is Haruki Murakami, and there's something about the way that he writes that's so, it's both grounded and dreamy / metaphysical. Like he has this way about him that his entire book sets these beautiful scenes that are almost unreal, but you're there. But his focus is on the inner monologue of the characters that are going in it. So you're learning about life in these other various ways. And it's always so inspiring to me. Whenever I write free
Mhm.
verse or something, I usually
Yeah.
it ends up in a style similar to his.
Yeah.
Um, musically right now, I'm really inspired by this guy. His name's Patrick Droney, and he's a young kid, very in the John Mayer situation,
Mhm. Yeah.
but with a little more emotional vocal delivery, and just as good
Okay.
a guitar player, and also a very
Mhm.
clever writer. And um, he's getting a lot of attention right now. And I in the industry, one of the things you have to guard yourself against is hardening your heart against people that
Yeah.
are
Oh
also
yeah.
you. It's really easy to do because it's so competitive, because there are only
Right.
so many slots. But when you see somebody get held aloft, that you're like, yes, 100% they deserve everything that they've gotten. And I think he's just one of those guys. He's a fantastic player, and and a good human. Besides, I just appreciate what he does, what he puts into the world.
No
My
doubt.
friend and co-writer Melissa tours with him and writes with him as
Mhm.
well, as she does write with me, and that was kind of the connection that got me in through.
Oh
And
wow.
Oh yeah.
I'm inspired by that. What else am I inspired by? Just good stories of real humans doing things not because they think it's going to do anything for them. I think that's the most
Mhm.
inspiring stuff,
Oh yeah.
because it's real. You know, like on the Upworthy and that kind of thing, where they
Yeah.
just
Mhm.
pluck those stories out of obscurity and say this is worth paying attention to just because it's pure and it's good and it's right. I think I'm inspired by that kind of stuff.
Awesome. And what would you like for your legacy to be in the music industry? What would you like to be known and remembered for?
Great question, Sandy. Thank you. Um, I I want to be a helper, and I think that's to industry insiders, young artists coming up, co-writers, even the folks that are building the industry themselves, or some cog in the machine work, or the people that are listening. Like, did I do something for them that helped? That they heard it and they heard themselves, or they heard a reference to something, or they heard advice, or they heard wisdom, or they heard a snippet of something where they go, like, it helped. It either helped them understand a friend or a family member, or maybe even
Yeah.
themselves better. Like, that's worthwhile to me. I think that's worth fighting for. That's worth the sacrifices and spending the money, and, like, trying to be a helper.
Love
Yeah.
that. So as you look down the road, what do you hope you don't forget?
Hmm. I hope I don't forget that we're all just like walking miracles. Like,
Oh.
we were two cells that got together, and through against all odds, and given our particular pregnancy difficulties in the way of, like, welcoming our son into the world,
Mhm.
Mhm.
um, it's all a miracle. Every single one of us
You know,
is.
she had cancer when she was 19 and wasn't supposed to ever have kids, and here it is years later.
We
We
have
got two.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Yeah, I think it's not just the resilience of, like, genetics or organic material. There's a to me there's a spirit behind all of this that
Mhm.
is it is miracles abound if we know
Mhm.
how to look at them. I think, and I think
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
me, it just but every single person is one, no matter how many walls or buildings we put on its place, or personality traits that we've put to mask this fact. Is that, like,
Mhm.
it's a friggin' miracle that any of us are here, and there is beauty on rainy days, and there's beauty on sunny days, and there's
Yeah.
Yes.
so much of the world to see that is outside of our control, care, or understanding, and that just excites me from day to day. I hope I don't forget that this is a wonder filled life that we get to live, and however it is that we can take it in and share it with others, and help them see that including myself. I don't want to forget that. I don't.
Yep, I love that. So as we come to a close here, if somebody felt called, or or they just knew that they had a passion for music, what advice would you give who wanted to do what you do?
Buckle in. Is my first. It's a piece of advice that I heard and I hated and I never got, but I'm now going to reiterate. If you can imagine yourself doing anything else, anything,
Go do that.
do that. Do it, because this is going to ask everything of you.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a support, if you don't have the chutzpah or the support group to survive this, I promise you're just going to be happier doing anything else. You're just going to be happier. It's hard. And it's hard in ways that I don't even know how to describe to somebody until they get there. And so if I can prevent them from knowing what that looks and feels like, I would like to do that.
Like I remember back in 2014, we ran a little site called New Country Buzz, and we interviewed a few people. It wasn't like a show. It was like I'd interview them and then I would transcribe it. And I hated that side of it. That's why we shut it down back then, because it was just so much. But I interviewed Allison Steele from Two Still Girls. And when I got to the Vice, that was her thing. She says, if you can see yourself doing anything else, keep this as a hobby and go do that. She goes, if you can be happy doing something else, then go do that and just keep this a hobby. She goes, but if you can't see yourself doing anything else, if you know you will not be happy unless you're doing this, then whatever you do, you go all in. Because if you don't go all in, you're going to be miserable.
100%. And I will borrow from Jim Carrey. He gave a commencement speech or an acceptance speech once, and he talked about his motivation being himself and deciding to go after this. And it was that his dad was a comedian and took the safe route and became a banker, raise his family and do his kids. And then his dad lost his job as a banker. And as a family, they were living in their car, as a family.
Yeah.
And he said it was at that point that he realized you can fail at the thing that you don't want.
Yeah.
And that's an important moniker as well. Like, even your safe route maybe isn't as safe as you think it is.
Especially in this day and time.
Is there any reason not to try to do the thing that you absolutely don't mind getting up and doing every day, regardless of whether it's hard or good? That's probably the right path, I think.
Love that. Love that. So as we close out here, tell everybody how they can find you.
Kenny Foster Music on both Instagram and the TikToks. Kenny Foster Official on Facebook and YouTube. And when I tweet under the moniker Kenny is Go, because you don't stop. So please come say hello. Would love to interact with and share as much as I can, because again, all I want to do is help. So
awesome.
Love that. We really enjoyed having you on the show today. And we look forward to having you back down the road.
Thanks, man. I really look forward to it, and all the best to you guys in your show as well.
All right.
Thanks so much for your time today.